why, but I thought, speaking of unnested balls, I don't know. It doesn't really make sense. So Matt Walsh, look at that guy. He's turning into a shape, isn't he? It's true that Matt Walsh is turning into a shape. We don't quite know what the shape is. We have slashed all the science departments that could study it, so I guess it won't matter. It's a shape, though. It's one that we know. So he, due to his shape, I think, and also some of his white supremacist ideology, is just befuddled by the show Severance. Let's watch is Matt Walsh, who is watching the hit TV show Severance, which is about how corporations are not good, I think. Let's see how Matt Walsh dissects this media. Oh, okay.
Despite what you may think, we do actually listen to audience feedback around here. And one thing many of you have been saying is that you'd like to see me do more film and television reviews. And specifically, you'd like to know not just what I hate, but what I like. Even though it's...
Ooh, not just what I hate, but what I like. It's interesting that as the right-wing grift continues to grind away at the bedrock of the soul of America, it seems that even those that participate in it are like, hey, can we do something fun now? And they're like, no, we just really don't like stuff. We don't ever really like things. We don't like things. That's our whole shtick.
Kind of more fun to talk about what you hate, but...
Is he going to say he likes the show? That's even better for us, Ari, yes. If he likes the show, even better. That's lovely.
The plan for today is to talk about something that I like. This will be a short video to recommend what is, in my view, the best show on TV right now. In fact, it's not much of a contest. I don't think any other show currently on air even really comes close. And that show is called Severance.
Oh yeah, he doesn't get it at all. They could have a fucking character in this called Matt Walsh. And they could do like I don't know, just make him black or something and gay, or played by a trans person that's doing making fun of him. It could be the most bald-faced parody of him, and he would be like, love it, stylistic, piano, nice. By the way, the intro to Severance fucking bangs. It's the best.
And if you haven't seen the show, I'll make sure not to.
They're not playing it right now. This is like Temu piano stuff. If you get a piano on Temu, it's called a piano.
Anything. You definitely want to go into the show knowing as little as possible about it. I'll just give you the basics of the plot.
Dude, it's so good, he won't even spoil it for you. Amazing. That's how, look, this is, and I can't express this enough, this is like one of the most anti-corporate shows ever made. Right? Like Andor isn't really, I mean, that's not really talking about corporations that much, but it gets into it a little bit. Like, this is genuinely, the corporations are abjectly evil, like comedically so. The comedy, and this is like I would say at least the first season is a dark comedy, and then it sort of gets into dramedy and drama territory. Although it's all dramatic, it's such a good show. Even the dark comedy moments are like spot on. Look, this is abjectly evil. Corporations are bad. Matt Walsh. Oof.
So Severance, produced and largely directed by Ben Stiller, there are other directors as well, is a show
who fucking hates Donald Trump out loud all the time. Woke guy. Very, and corporate worship. Oh yeah, holy shit.
Following a small group of employees at a company called Lumen.
They're not
in this fictional world, some sort of technology has been developed that allows a person's consciousness to essentially be cut in half, to be severed. So when they're at work, working on some very vague and mysterious project down in the basement of Lumen, they don't remember anything about their lives outside of work, and when they're not at work, they don't remember anything about their lives at work. So the work version of themselves essentially never leaves work, the non-working version essentially never goes to work.
Is he going to say in a joking way that he loves that idea and would totally do that if he could? Being one of the bad guys that is talked about in the show, being one of the doofuses in the universe that they used to discuss why, oh, look, at the stupid fucking things that people will latch onto from a political movement if enough of the propaganda is spun in a right way. Like, they literally talk about this.
And that's kind of the setup. I'm not going to say anything else about the plot. There are three things that I like about this show. Three things that I think it does really well that many other shows don't do well or don't do at all. So number one is a big one. It's an original story. In a world of franchise films and sequels and remakes, it is possible to still tell original stories. Severance is obviously inspired by things that came before it. It's clear that the guy who wrote this show was a big fan of Office Space, for example. Severance has a similar view of workplace culture, the kind of mindless busy work that defines many office jobs. The humor.
How can Matt Walsh to agree that it's mindless busy work, to even acknowledge that that's true, is like just fucking insane for your worldview. It's so insane to be a capitalist and agree that that's mindless nonsense. It will never stop surprising me, ever.
Kind of comes from a similar place in many cases. I'd say it's just as funny as Office Space, much darker, more thrilling, but still very funny as well. And this is how it should work. Storytellers should be inspired by other storytellers to come up with new stories that are influenced by, but not directly plagiarizing, what came before. You don't need to attempt a TV remake of Office Space. Just take whatever you love about it and inject it into a brand new story. What a concept. And that's what
Matt Walsh is like, yeah, it's basically Office Space with a new concept. Every other movie that's ever shown Office Space as not the movie Office Space, just a space that you do have an office in, as a bad place to work. Fucking Being John Malkovich has scenes like this. What? I feel like almost like lefties are good at art or something. I know, right? Okay, producer of Lady Ballers. Yeah, what a novel concept, the Daily Wire with their constant flops.
Severance does. It's the same thing I say about all these directors now who say, well, I grew up watching Star Wars. I love Star Wars. And so, of course, I'm so excited to be making a Star Wars movie or a Star Wars show in the Star Wars universe. No, if you're an actual talented filmmaker and you grew up watching Star Wars, rather than just making another Star Wars thing, tell your own story that has Star Wars influences.
That's literally what they do, and then you yell at them. And then you go, no, I want my other story. Like, fucking, huh? When they did that, you guys went, no, that's not my Luke Skywalker. You know what I mean? Like, you shit your pants. These people are fucking insane. It infects every part of their life.
But it's not Star Wars. How about that? I'm kind of at the point now where I will try to watch at least almost any original show or film simply because it is original. Even if they aren't good, I at least want to reward them for trying something new. And fortunately, Severance actually is very good. 2, Severance deals with interesting ideas, which is another thing.
Ideas that have obviously flown over your fucking head. How any right-wing person can like this is just nuts. They have the dissonance of someone that is severed.
Thing that, I wish more shows and films did. When most people talk about the show and the ideas that it grapples with, what they usually will talk about is the commentary on the modern workplace. But that to me is the less interesting theme. That's kind of window dressing for the...
Go. New epi this Friday, by the way. That's right. Time to catch up right now.
Far more fascinating exploration of human consciousness. That's what makes the show interesting to me. Severance asks a pretty deep question. It's one of the deepest, really, which is, what makes you an individual person? What makes you a self? We know what makes you a person biologically, but what makes you an individual? What makes you a self? Is your memory the only thing sort of holding you together and making you one individual? The show argues, I think pretty convincingly, that if you take one person and you put them in 2 different settings and you make it so that they don't remember anything about themselves in the other setting, you'll end up with 2 distinct personalities and value systems and beliefs. And in effect, then, you end up with 2 selves in one person.
Matt, do you think understanding this has any bearing on a leftist worldview whatsoever? Like, just can you think about that? So if your environment forms the person you are, what else is true about the world, You won't find a far-right Christo-fascist thinking that deep. Nope. Because if you do, then you go, uh-oh, I might have been wrong about some things. Fucking insane. Too many big words, yeah.
And if memory is the one thing holding this kind of precarious Jenga tower that I call a self together, what happens if my memory is wrong? Like, memory is notoriously unreliable. Nobody's memory is perfect, which means that every person's self is based at least partly on
This is from Memento?
a fiction.
They didn't put a credit up for that. Interesting. Do they have permission?
You are not really the sum total of your experiences, but
Why don't they cite their works, Daily Wire?
rather you are the sum total of how you remember your experiences. And that seems to be what the show is driving at, and maybe they're right about it, maybe they're wrong, but it's an interesting thing to think about. And any show that actually gives you interesting things to think about is a win in my book. Let me ask you a question.
Well, don't tell me that you're done now. I'm not going to watch your ad. That's the answer to the question, by the way. I'm going to watch that shit. Express shit. Wow, that's a long fucking ad, brother. That's a 90-second ad.
YT. And 3, finally, Severance is great for a reason that's going to seem very, very simple, and it is, but it is also rare. And that is that in this show, stuff actually happens.
Wow. Stuff happens. Insane. He just, people called season 1 stuff. Severance is the only show I've seen to do racist joke right. Maybe that's why Matt likes it. Do you mean the fucking, I won't give a spoiler, but the painting? Do you mean the painting thing? Like the gift? Yeah.
And this is maybe the most radical thing about it. The plot moves forward every episode.
I know so many shows that do.
Things happen. There are stakes. There are consequences. Each moment
You should watch Shrinking. It's also a very good show.
in the show leads to another moment. You know, there's a famous video that's worth watching if you haven't seen it of Matt Parker and Trey Stone, who are the South Park guys, explaining that in a bad, poorly told story, each scene is linked together by the words "and then." You would say, well, this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, the end. But in a good, well-told story, in a good movie or a good show, each scene is linked together by the words therefore or but. This happens, therefore this happens, but then this happens, therefore this happens.
Causality is definitely a good storytelling mechanism. I agree. As someone who writes a story or two from time to time, I think it is good to say, to ask yourself, this happens, then what happens there? I'll tell you, most shows follow this formula as well. A lot of the things that stand out in Severance are also like the cinematography, the score, the tone, the acting is so well done because every character that plays a severed character plays two characters essentially. But of course there's going to be like a Venn diagram of similarities between them because of course they're the same person at some level, right? And so it's very interesting to look at that. And I think everyone does a very good job, and I don't know. It's so much deeper than Matt has ever seen. Everything on the screen is intentional. It's not just that he's saying the plot moves forward. The plot doesn't move forward just in a linear sort of like narrative sense. It also happens like just from you examining the image on the screen. You will find continuity later on that points to something else, and it could actually literally be important. I'm not joking when I say pretty much every shot, if not every shot, has a clue in it. I'm not really joking.
And that's just another way of saying that a film or show should be propulsive. You know, one thing should lead to another. The train should be hurtling every moment towards a destination. But many shows and films these days are and then stories.
I disagree that this show is an example of this is a therefore and but show. This is literally a show about the consequences of actions. This is the worst example you could have used. This is just something you consider woke. And look, chat, if you want another reason to watch Severance, there's some gay in it, okay? There's some gay. I'll say it.
They just kind of meander.
Severance is objectively more woke than this show, and it's not close. Yep, some real good gay stuff in it. Yeah, like genuinely good gay, quality gay. I'm trying to just say it's gay without giving any sort of spoilers to anything, because it's worth just finding out as you go, you know. But it's good.
candor. There are no stakes. There are no real consequences. There's nothing in the story that really matters.
I fucking disagree. What do you mean there's nothing that really matters? This is something you levy at a prequel when you don't know anything about it. This is like, I'm telling you, as a Lord of the Ring head, being able to spend time with Celebrimbor is so fucking cool, and being able to see how Sauron affects people, and oh man, just to watch Sauron work in corruption is so fascinating and interesting. I love it. I love it so much. Anyway, this show is getting all of its seasons.
And it works this way for a reason. It works this way because the studios want to milk each franchise for all it's worth. Well, first of all, each thing has to be a franchise, and then you have to milk it, which means that nothing can ever actually happen.
Capitalism! That's fucking capitalism! That's the corporations! Matt, are you fucking serious? He's bitching about having too much corporate money-grabbing media right now. The reason that Severance is the way it is because Apple's approach is that a company, or I guess a production, has to make a season every year. And so they have to keep doing it. And obviously, I think they also hire quality people. They seem to be making high-quality shows. I've also seen Silo. Shrinking is very good. C is a very quality show as well on Apple. Several of them have been very good.
I mean, Disney notoriously is so desperate to make sure that nothing happens in their films that they've even invented the multiverse so that...
This is not an invention. Okay, look, I'm not even a big fan of the Marvel stuff post. I think everyone agrees that most of the Marvel stuff is pretty mid right now, but this is not an invention of the fucking movies. This is comic book lore. This is just the same stuff. They're just working it in because it's fun, and they can do a bunch of different stuff. There have been some of the best stuff that they've done has been on streaming, like the Loki show. Very good. I like WandaVision. Anyway, there's going to be some good stuff eventually come out of this, I'm sure. Marvel is capable of it, but it's a saturation thing, obviously, and it's a lack of quality on some of their other projects. Like they try to launch these like small things that no one's really interested in, and then they don't make them with any quality because they're, you know, instead of like, you know how like with Guardians of the Galaxy, people were like, huh, who's that? And then some comic book nerds were like, oh, cool, that's a really cool decision. I can't wait until we see that. And then James Gunn and the gang just really spent the time to make the Guardians of the Galaxy movies good, and they didn't write it off as something lame. Because it could I mean, it's a raccoon, and it could be lame. But instead they gave it heart, gave it meaning, and it really worked. Of course it did, right? And that's what worked with a lot of the good Marvel movies. Same shit. And so, like, all you need is good characters. I'll watch anything James Gunn works on. Me too. Common Side Effects is fucking awesome. I've been looking at that, and Sarah looked at it and didn't think it looked interesting. But I think it looks interesting. I agree. I haven't seen it, though.
If a character dies, he can be replaced by an infinite number of replacement versions of himself, which means, of course, that it doesn't matter if a character dies. He really can't die. So nothing happens. Nothing matters. The story just kind of floats along like debris. Severance, so far anyway, has not fallen prey to that. Each scene is a but or a therefore, and there are physical and emotional consequences to everything that happens. Now, the show isn't perfect. There are moments here and there that don't work. It follows some threads every once in a while that I don't find especially interesting. As for the wokeness fact...
Like what? I'd be interested to find what... I'm trying to think of like a thread in the show that's been wasted.
You know, it's always a question. I would say that I'm not going to call this an anti-woke show. It's certainly not that. I do think it's a mostly unwoke show. There is a gay character in the show, but to this point, they haven't leaned into that too much. He's there, but they don't beat you over the head with him. That might change. I mean, you never know. But this is Hollywood after all.
When did he record this? When? What? Mostly unwoke. So, yeah, obviously he's missed the boat on all of this. I think the most regular character in the whole show is I would say one of the main characters, Mark's sister, she's closest to, I think, the viewer point of view, where she'll often be like, this is what the fuck. And I mean, I think Matt would consider her pretty woke, which means the writers are pretty woke. I don't know, man. This is what happens with these kinds of things when obviously there's a good quality media thing. The grifter guys like Matt Walsh will have to go into like a dissonance mode to be like, yeah, I like this thing. I know it critiques worldview aspects that are foundational to me as a human being in my entire political life. But I'm going to overlook these because it's good. I can't do it. I wouldn't be able to. He is genuinely not able to think with any sort of level of critical analysis. It's crazy.
The biggest problem with Severance is
You
that
could probably watch it off Apple TV somewhere. I'm sure the internet has access. Although, that said, I think the people that made the show are doing such a good job that I would be willing to give them my the number towards their subscription thing. I think they've done a great job.
that it's a show
I also share an account with, so I don't pay for it. So, yeah, easy for me to say.
revolving around a central mystery, which is a lot of fun. I mean, these kinds of shows are always fun. I can imagine as the writer, it's a lot of fun because it allows you to have a bunch of weird stuff happen. And that certainly happens in this show. There's a lot of weird things always happening, and you're always being surprised, which is great. Again, fun to watch. But the implication is that this weird, like, we don't know why this weird stuff is happening, but there is a reason, and so it'll all be tied together in the end, and we're gonna understand it. So you're kind of like writing this check that you have to cash later. And
yeah. So this is this is a writing technique. It's called like promise and payoff essentially. So when you mention like, we got a bank it's the hardest bank in the world, impossible to crack the vault in that bank, you're cracking into the bank, right? Or you're trying to. You know what I mean? Like that's what it's about. You got to promise it. It's called, Chekhov's gun is a really good example.
And if the check bounces, if the answer isn't satisfying at the end of this whole thing, it ruins the whole show. I mean,
right? Yeah.
I mean, there are shows that have bad endings where it doesn't ruin the whole show. You can still enjoy the show. But if the whole show is built around a central mystery and then the answer to the mystery is unsatisfying, then it just breaks down everything. There's no reason to watch it anymore. So whether Severance ultimately sticks the landing remains to be seen. So far, so good.
So far, so good. It's funny that he won't, even in a video where he's like, I like this thing, he has to make sure to end this video on like, it's tentative though, I don't like, I'm not all in on this. I'm not gonna, it feels like he wants to hedge himself so he doesn't get hurt or something, like a fucking, I don't know, like a commitment issues thing.
And I highly recommend it. And that's it. I promise that next time I review something, it will be a thing I hate, because all of this positivity is honestly making me a little nauseous.
Told you he'd make a joke about it. Cool. It must be exhausting to be someone like Matt Walsh, or just a right-winger in general, and like to enjoy something publicly is like embarrassing for you. What an exhausting existence, man. Like, yeah, you have to like, there's parts, I'm still angry though, I don't just like stuff. That's gay. What a fucking weirdo. Just like, enjoy it. Liking something, yeah. Ugh, like he's still in fucking high school, dude. Loser.